Welcome back to Real Shift. My name's Joe. Today I'm going to be doing a Westworld Season 3, Episode 5 recap and review. Before I get into it, please, if you like what you're hearing, like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. You know the deal. We're going to get right into it. It's that time of the week again. If you haven't been watching any of my videos, I'm just going to give you a little bit of my thoughts on the season so far. I've really enjoyed this season, especially after last season, which I also enjoyed, but it also felt a little bit too, I guess you could say, convoluted, a little bit too jam-packed. There was too much going on. It was a little hard to follow. I feel like this season has been much more straightforward, and I've pretty much liked every single episode so far. And I like this one too. There was one thing that I didn't particularly like, and I'll get into that in a little bit as I go on with the review. But first I want to start off by saying this. As far as this episode goes, I think the biggest thing to come out of this episode is definitely the genre drug. And basically what genre is, it's a drug that was actually introduced, I think, in the last episode, or maybe the episode before that. I'm not really sure. But basically, it's a drug that makes you go through different genres in film. It's the equivalent of being at a film festival when you're high, I guess, essentially. You see the world in a different way. You see different colors. You see different motions. You hear music. There's actually soundtracks that you hear. And there's different stages to the drug. So basically what happens is Caleb gets, I guess, injected with it by Liam when Liam's trying to escape them. And so the whole episode is Caleb, not the whole episode, but most of the episode is Caleb going through the different stages of this genre drug. And I have to say, I'm not a drug user personally, but if I was going to take drugs, I think genre is the way to go. Because as a movie lover, I mean, it's like a dream come true. You're basically, for a short period of time, you're living out moments in movies or different genres of movies, and I think it's a pretty cool idea, to be honest. Yeah, like, I like the idea. At first, when they first introduced it, or the first trip that he has, I guess, the first stage of it, I was kind of wondering if it was going to work. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to work, but as the episode went on, they definitely did some cool, interesting things, both visually and from a music standpoint, that really kept my interest throughout the episode. I think this is definitely the highlight of this episode. So as Caleb goes through the genre drug, the first stage, I guess, that he encounters is like a black and white. It's almost like a black and white Humphrey Bogart type movie. He sees the whole world in black and white. You have your classic score that would be associated with that type of movie. So I thought that was pretty cool. Then we go into, he gets involved in this car chase with him and Dolores, and basically there's a car chase, there's explosions, and the whole time the Rise of the Valkyrie is playing, and if you know that, it's popular for being an Apocalypse Now, most likely. So there's really the idea, they're trying to give you the idea of a war movie, essentially, and which I thought was pretty cool to give, it was like a little mini war in the streets of the city, and also it has some relevance with Caleb and his history in the military. So yeah, so there's like a war movie aspect to that stage, I guess. There's another scene another trip where everything's kind of cloudy. It almost looks like, I guess, almost like a soap opera, sort of, kind of. But it's supposed to be like a romantic movie. This is a romantic stage of it, because him and Dolores are like shooting at people, and he looks at her in almost a romantic way, and there's classical music playing, and it's just really another cool scene. There's another scene where they're walking down into, I guess it's a subway, and there's vibrant colors, and they're walking in slow motion. I don't really know what genre exactly that's trying to emulate, but it looked cool. It was basically a group of people walking in slow motion. Looked cool. You've seen that in 1,000 movies. There's another moment where it's actually on the train where Caleb has this super dramatic like monologue where he's talking to Liam and he's telling him basically how much of a piece of shit he is, but it's done in a way that is very cinematic. Like, you could tell, like, it was a monologue written for somebody, like it was done on purpose that way to make it seem like a drama or a more dramatic type moment in a movie. And I thought that was really cool too, how it was subtly done with just dialogue. At least that's how I took it. I don't know if they intended it to be that way. There's also a moment mixed in here where it's a tiny moment, but it's significant, and it's where Caleb actually sees Dolores get shot, and she basically just zips up her jacket, and she doesn't really react to it. And I don't know that he necessarily knows what she is yet, full on, but he's putting it together slowly but surely, and I think that's going to be a pivotal thing that's going to come up later for sure, because now he has the idea that she isn't exactly who everyone thinks she is. Let me put it that way. Like, we know who she is, but all the characters in the story don't necessarily know who she is. And then there's a moment towards the end too, and I guess he was out of the trip by this point, but there was still a highly cinematic element to the scene, and it's they're walking on this beach with Liam. They still have him captive, and I think they're going to an airfield, I believe. And basically, the music from The Shining's playing. Now, if you know me, or if you've ever heard me talk about The Shining, it's one of my favorite movies. So anytime anything references The Shining, I'm automatically invested. You got me, you hooked me, you just reel me in. But yeah, there's a moment towards the end here where they start playing The Shining music and they're walking on the beach. And I notice there's a lot of Kubrick-style wide shots, like in these grand shots of like the beach and the water and the sunset with the pier. And I think that was all, again, a cinematic choice. I don't know that necessarily he was still on the drug at that time, but it's still them playing around with these cinematic elements and playing around in different genres, and I thought that was pretty cool too. So this whole genre sequence, it's broken up throughout the episode. It's not all at once, but you get to see these different genres, and you get to see the world through Caleb's eyes. But it made me wish that this whole episode was told from Caleb's perspective, because when it leaves him and it goes into the other moments, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, I think it kind of hurt the episode a little bit. And that's mainly because of the story they're trying to tell when Caleb's not around. And again, I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, it just made me wish this whole episode was just told from Caleb's perspective. Like, we get like the whole reveal of Dolores's ultimate plan and everything, that should have all been told, but through Caleb's eyes, and using these different cinematic elements to relay that point. So I thought that was a little bit of a missed opportunity. Basically, I wanted them to go into the genre stuff even more, like use the drug even more throughout the course of the episode. It is used quite a bit, so it's a little bit nitpicky, I guess, for me to say that, but yeah, I just wanted a little even more from that, if possible, because it was so cool. Like, it was a cool idea, and I felt like it was pretty well executed too, which at first I wasn't sure, but as the episode went on, like, they really got me, and they really made it work. So I can definitely appreciate that. The major things that happens within the course of all this genre trip that's going on is basically Dolores gains access to the Rehoboam system, and she releases the data that has been stored in there to everyone in the whole world. So everyone sees their own data pop up on their phone, and basically it's beating home the idea, essentially, which they've been toying with pretty much this whole season. It's that the humans are stuck in a loop just like the hosts are. The humans aren't that much different than the hosts than we originally thought. Everybody wants to make their own choices. Everyone wants to think that life is what you make it. But when they get this information on this phone, it's basically telling them that things are predetermined for them, and they react accordingly. They react much like the hosts react when they finally had an uprising and didn't want to just be used as objects anymore. And I thought that was just really cool, a nice way to beat it home. And it should be noted that Liam is the one who actually predicted that chaos would ensue, and it actually does incite chaos in people. A lot of people don't know how to react to being told what their future is. I mean, nobody wants to be told what their future is. In our minds, it's our own free will. It's what we make it. So when you look down at your phone and someone's telling you, how you're going to die, or how your daughter is going to die, or whatever the case may be, it's going to incite some kind of reaction in you. And there's moments where they show people who are overcome with grief, like the woman who sees that her daughter is most likely going to commit suicide in 5 to 7 years or whatever. And that was, that's a tough moment for anyone to deal with. And then you see people just lashing out at other people on the subway, and you see people beating other people in the streets. So there's this moment of chaos as soon as they exit the subway and all the information's been released. And I guess that's Dolores' ultimate plan, was just to, I guess, wake people up and to introduce anarchy into this supposed perfect civilization. And her goal from the beginning has always been to bring it all down. Well, that's what this is the first step in doing so. So I thought that was, as far as the major reveal of the episode goes, or the major event of the episode, this is definitely it. So now, this is the first step in the plan. So what comes next? Like, what's going to be the next step in that plan for Dolores? It's difficult to say right now, but as far as this goes, I think this is like the first obvious good step in what she's trying to accomplish. It's not necessarily good from a human perspective. Well, maybe it is, because maybe they're waking them up. And again, I think it's Bernard who actually has the quote when this happens, and it's basically she's freeing them from their loop. And that's just really interesting to me, that humans are also stuck in these loops in their real lives. And they go to work and they do the same things every day, and they're just having the same outcomes every day. It's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Like, that's essentially what humans do on a day-to-day basis. They just do what they're told, or they just go to this job because they think they have to, or whatever the case may be. And then they never accomplish what they are fully capable of accomplishing. And as a person who is trying to start a YouTube channel, I totally identify with that. So I think anyone can identify with that. So yeah, this is the first step in Dolores' plan. And I thought it was very well done as far as like post her releasing the information, and again the chaos that ensued. I enjoyed all that. So there's another moment as Liam is basically, I guess, belittling everyone that has captured him. It should be noted that, what is their names again? I'm sorry. I forget their names, to be honest. It's Marshawn Lynch and the character that's with him. I don't know why I can't remember their names right now. I didn't write them down either. But they basically save Dolores and Caleb in a firefight. They come to their aid. So they're walking on a beach with the four of them and Liam starts berating them, talking about how inferior people are the reason for the prison that they're in, or the reason that the world is a prison or whatever. And Ash basically shoots him because she's tired of hearing it, and she's executing her free will. Like, here's your free will for you. Like, nobody's deciding anything for me. I'm going to make the choice to shoot you right in the chest, and that's what she does. So Liam falls in the water at the beach, and Caleb is basically cradling him, or trying to help him. And this is where Liam tells Caleb, he basically says, you did it, you did it. He keeps telling him, you did it. Now, we don't know what he did, but there was a moment earlier where Liam basically saw something in Caleb that he's, I guess, capable of, or that he's possibly going to happen, his future, I guess. And he saw it through his portal, and it could be military related. Granted, given that Caleb has a military background, but it looks to have this huge, possibly life-threatening impact on a lot of people, whatever this thing is that Caleb did or is going to do. So another little wrinkle there is that is Caleb the real villain of the story? Is that the thing that we've been missing this whole time? Like, we're looking at Dolores, we're looking at Serac. Is Caleb the actual person that we should be worried about in this story? Because he's clearly been through some traumatic experiences in his life, and you have to take into consideration what that does to a person. I mean, almost every great villain in cinematic history or in TV, they've gone through these horrible situations, and it turned them into who they are. Is that's what's happening with Caleb, and he doesn't realize it because he doesn't know who he is. So there's just that element again of free will. Like, is he going to make the choice to do this horrible thing that Liam thinks that he's going to do? And for all intents and purposes, it looks like he might. So it'd be interesting to see where that goes. And again, it plays into the idea of is shit predetermined for humans just as much as it was for hosts. So, and who knows, maybe we'll come to the realization that Caleb may not even be human, because he actually says towards the end of the episode to Dolores, he says, basically, I'm not like other people. And that could be taken any way in this show. It could be taken as I'm just a different person when it comes to just my genetic makeup. It could be I could be that you're a host underneath, and now you're starting to realize that you're just not human like everyone else. It could go in many different directions when it comes to Westworld, those comments that he made. So, again, it did a lot to add to intrigue to the character of Caleb, basically through his trip and through the realization that he does something or is going to do something horrible at some point, or at least according to Liam's, I guess, when he looked into Caleb. So we'll see how that goes. The other major part of this episode is the part that I wasn't particularly fond of, and it's basically a Serac-centric episode outside of the Caleb and genre stuff. Basically, we get to see this flashback of the creation of the Rehoboam system, and basically the deal that Serac had to make to get the information needed or the data needed to create Rehoboam. We get insight into Serac's plan to basically, he wants to control society. He wants to control it by using that data to dictate people's futures and basically playing God, which, if you watch early in the episode, basically he came to the country, that was his goal, was to create a god, and that's essentially what he's doing with the Rehoboam system. He even has re-education centers where he'll send people who, I guess, basically don't conform to what they're supposed to be doing, or don't conform to the idea that shit is predetermined for them. So it's very 1984 in a sense that he's like the overseer, the big brother of this situation, and everything goes through him. And again, he's an all-seeing God villainous type person, and it really beats home the idea of why he is the way he is. He even goes to an extent of experimenting on his own brother. He murders Liam Dempsey Sr. We see that in the flashback, and it's all to protect his system. Now, my thing with this is this whole sequence with Serac is that I don't necessarily know that we needed to see this play out through the course of the whole episode. A lot of what we saw here, we kind of already knew, and the stuff that we didn't see, again, we didn't need in a whole episode. It probably could have just been explained in a few lines of dialogue, and we could have moved on. So I feel like this was a little bit, I guess, too much. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't a necessary part of the story, in my personal opinion. And I didn't find it all that interesting. I don't really find Serac all that interesting, to be honest. He's probably the weaker link of this season for me. I just don't find his character that interesting. And yeah, I think this is delving into him, but delving into him a little bit too much. I think the air of mystery was the only thing that was kind of saving his character, and now you're kind of removing that by showing a lot of his backstory. Like, I don't really necessarily want to see his backstory. It's not something that is crucial to the story they're trying to tell, in my personal opinion. And yeah, that was like, this is probably the first part of season 3 that I haven't really enjoyed all that much, was the whole Serac backstory aspect of this episode. Again, it's not going to be anything that's going to change my opinion this season, because overall I think this season has been very well done. But it is definitely the low point of the season for me. And again, I'm not, down on the whole episode because I enjoyed most of it. But yeah, the Serac stuff just didn't really interest me all that much. But, I mean, that's just me. It's just my opinion. Tell me what you guys thought about it in the comments down below, if you have an opinion on it at all. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Season 3, Episode 5 of Westworld. Yeah, the season is continuing, I think, in an upward trend. A minor hiccup with the Serac stuff, but overall, I think this season is really keeping things streamlined for the most part. It's not too convoluted like the past season was, and I think they're introducing. I think it's a logical step for them to introduce the idea of humans basically needing salvation just as much as hosts do in a weird sort of way, and how humans can basically get caught in these loops much like the hosts do. I think that's a really interesting idea, and I think it's a logical step in the story they're trying to tell with the Westworld show. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought about it, though, in the comments down below. Did you like this episode? Did you hate it? Let me know about all that. Like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next week for episode 6 of Westworld. See you next time. Thanks for watching.